Hey guys, and thanks for joining me for yet another video. Now in this video, we're going to get into some Easter buns. This is a highly requested video and most requested for Easter. So let's get into this video. Hey y'all, so here I am in the kitchen once again making us some Easter cross buns. So here I have 4 cups of flour, 50 grams of butter, so it's like 1/4 of the big thing of butter. I have 1 egg, 1/2 cup of raisins, 1/3 of a cup of mixed fruit. This is yellow food coloring. I have 1/2 teaspoon. I have 1.5 cups of milk. I used evaporated milk in this case. You can use any milk you have. 1 teaspoon of mixed spice. 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. 1 cup of sugar. 1 tablespoon of yeast, just instant yeast. 1 teaspoon of salt. I also have, by the way, a bowl that's just been greased. This is for the next step, so just have a bowl that's been buttered and just sitting to the side waiting nicely. And your milk, if you can put it in the microwave and warm it for about, say, 45 seconds so it's warm. You don't need it to be hot, you just need it warm enough so that it can activate your yeast. So to this milk, you're gonna be adding the yeast to it, so all of your yeast to your milk, and you're going to give it a quick whisk to incorporate. So from your sugar, you're going to steal 1 teaspoon, 1 flat teaspoon. It doesn't have to be round, just flat, and you're going to put it in there. That also helps to activate the yeast. So you're going to put that sugar right along with that yeast in that milk, that warm milk, and you're going to give it a whisk like I am right here to activate it. You'll eventually see a lot of bubbles on top when the yeast is activated. So we'll be back to see what happens. It should take about 15 minutes. So to your flour, we're going to be adding all of your dry ingredients, which would include your 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of mixed spice, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 cup of sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of yellow food coloring, your mixed fruit, your raisins, and that's it for now. So to your 50 grams or 1/4 stick of a butter, you know, the big bars of butter, 1/4 of part of that, you're gonna stick this into the microwave for 30 seconds to soften it up, and then you're gonna check it to see if it needs more. This is 30 seconds out of the microwave, so you won't need more than 30 seconds to melt your butter. So you have your butter nice and melted, as you can see as I'm whisking through it. The contents of it is nice and melted. So remember our milk and yeast mixture. As you can see, the yeast has activated. You can see all those bubbles there. Plus you can see this cup measurement went all the way up to 2 cups now after we added the yeast. So to that mixture, I'm going to give it a mix. As you can see, it went right down there, but the bubbles remain, which means your yeast is fully activated. To this, I'm going to be adding my melted butter into this mixture. To this bowl with your dry ingredients, you're going to take a whisk and you're going to just incorporate everything. Like you're going to mix it all in while it's dry, so everything's one smooth blend. I'm going to be whisking my egg before I add it to this mixture I have going here as well. So we give this a mix till it whisks. So to this mixture now, we're going to be adding our egg. And we're going to give that a whisk as well to incorporate. We're going to whisk it for about, say, 20 to 30 seconds till it's one smooth, creamy paste. It's already that, but just to make sure it's mixed. So to our bowl of dry ingredients, we're going to start slowly incorporating this mixture. Now, as you could see, as we added everything, it came up to 2 cups exactly. So we're gonna add 1 cup of that to this mixture. Yeah, that's about 1 cup. And we're gonna give that a whisk to incorporate into these dry ingredients. So I just added the rest of the mixture to it. And there's gonna come a point in time in this mixing this in that you're gonna need your hands. So I just use this spatula until I can't anymore, and then I go in with my hands. So basically I use this until most of the moisture is gone and most of the flour is gone into the moisture. So yeah, I'm gonna do that and show you when that happens. So at this point I went in with my hands where most of the moisture is into this dough. So I'm just gonna give it a knead. I'm gonna knead the flour until I get all the flour into it. It's almost there, and it's gonna be a very sticky-ish dough. It's not gonna be a dry dough, it's gonna be pretty sticky. But I'm gonna finish kneading this in and show you what it looks like when it's all in there. So I finished kneading my dough. I got all of the contents of the bottom into it, and as you see, I've got a nice stiff consistency of dough. So I'm just gonna give it a light flouring and then transfer it over to that bowl that we have that's greased and waiting. So I'm just gonna give it a nice little dusting like this and transfer it into the bowl, and I'll show you what that would look like. So now that it's lightly dusted, I'm just gonna be transferring it over to that bowl that we have that's greased. I'm gonna give it just a slight press downwards in there. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna cover this bowl with cling wrap, and we're gonna let this proof for about 45 minutes. So in 45 minutes it should be just about or around a double in size. So we're gonna cover this with foil and then a kitchen towel for 45. So we're gonna need to be making 3 more things that go with this bun. The first is the ingredients for the crust, the initial crust that you're gonna put on the buns before baking. So in here I have 4 tablespoons of flour. To that I have 1 teaspoon of sugar, and to that I have a 1/4 cup of water. I'm going to add half of it first, and I'm going to give it a mixed. So this is the desired thickness that we were going for. So now that I have achieved the thickness, you see it's like an icing, so it's not thin and it's not thick. So what I'm gonna do now is I have a Ziploc bag that I'm gonna fold down and leave the pointed side of the bag down inside of a cup, just to assist me in getting all the contents down into the corner of this bag. So we're gonna make, so with that pointy side of the bag down in the middle of there, you're gonna just kind of push it up, push it so that it's nice and tight, and you're going to be dropping the contents that you mix down into that corner. The point of that is because at the end of the day you're going to cut the tip of the bag to ICING the buns, so that might as well get as much as possible down into the corner that you're going to be using. So I'm going to transfer this over. Now in that same glass that I used to section out the icing or the sugar flour mixture, I ended up putting some tap water, but from the hot side of the tap, so you might be able to see a little bit of steam coming up. But the point of me doing that, I did half of the glass, and I'm gonna just be placing this mixture into it just so that it stays warm, and I'm gonna actually use the bag to fold it over like that. And I'm gonna go a step further, and I'm gonna put a rubber band on it. The point for that is I'm trying to keep this temperature warm because I'm not going to be using this for a little while, but I just wanted it to be made and put out of the way. So we're going to set that aside until we're ready to use it, and knowing that this warm water is going to keep this from getting hard, and it's going to keep the consistency we need in order to put the crosses on the buns when needed. So for the glaze that goes on it when it's finished, I'm going to be using some pure orange marmalade. I use 1 tablespoon of that. To that I add 1 full cup of boiling hot water. I try and pour it right on top of that so it melts it off. On top of that, I have 1/3 of a cup of white sugar. I add that in there. Which is definitely optional. You can use vanilla extract, but in my case I'm using some dark rum. I'm gonna be using 1/2 of a 1/4 cup, so 1/4 cup but half of it. So we put that right on in and we give it a mix, and we put this on our fire until it develops a boil, and then we're gonna reduce. So as you can see, it's developed a nice boil and it's on high right now. So we're gonna turn this down to medium low, so just lesser than medium, and we're gonna let that reduce to a nice thick syrupy consistency. So we're just gonna leave it uncovered and monitor it until it thickens up. So we're gonna set a timer for 15 minutes just to start doing that, and we'll check it to see how much more it needs. So y'all, the 45-minute time mark has passed for this dough in here, and yes, it has risen. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna be taking this out of here, and we're gonna be putting it onto a nice clean counter, and we're gonna roll this into a log. I like to work with it in the shape of a log, so I'm gonna roll this into a long log, which I'm gonna cut into the 12 So my first advice for handling this long log is to cut it where you think half of it is, which is here for me. If we're gonna first cut that half into half again, so at this point we're gonna end up with 4 halves, and then we're gonna cut each of those halves into halves again. So you have 4, you're gonna cut it down the middle again. So I'm excluding the last 2 pieces on either side, and we're focusing on the 4 in the middle. We're gonna apply that half again. And then we're gonna roll each piece into nice puff balls so that they're individual, right? And we're gonna roll these into individual puff balls. I would show you, but I would set up my camera, so I'm just gonna invert. So here I have a 2.8 liter Pyrex dish, the size you would use for lasagna. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna spray that so that, you know, the corners and the sides are gonna be easy for it to release afterwards. So I give that a nice spray to line it. So by inverting the inside like that, the outside is already getting like circular. So basically you're just trying to make a puff in the middle. So you're just folding this all in, and the middle is gonna have like a roundish effect on the top. Alright? And when you get that consistency, then you're gonna place that into your. So once again, we're gonna do the same thing, starting with the piece that's just been cut like that. We're gonna start by using your thumb to push in the edges of one of the sides. You could just keep doing that, keeping the other side firm in a firm grasp in your hand while you're doing that, so as to give it the shape and the ends folded in nicely like that, nice and smooth. Alright, when it's good, you put it next. So I would suggest you continue doing that for each of the pieces that you have till you end up with the 12 that it would take to fill this tray. So as you see, I have 2 already lined up. It's okay that they're touching, that's fine. So I'm gonna be placing this one right next to them as well. So there's 3 in that row. Okay, so we're gonna continue until we have all 12 in there. So as you can see, I have all 12 of my buns rolled out in here. So my next thing I usually do is I go in with my knife and I indent across. Like I just take it and kind of lightly swipe the middle. It doesn't have to be pretty, it's just basically you're getting the bun ready for the line that's gonna go in there of icing. Okay y'all, so the timer on my glaze went off. However, it's not ready yet. Like it's reduced, but it's not reduced to thickness. So I'm gonna set another timer for 20 minutes. And I'll be back to check it to see how much it's reduced. Yeah, but it's not quite there yet. Hey guys, so I just wanted to come back. Remember, I had set a timer for another 20 minutes. However, my syrup started forming right off the back here. It was only 10 more minutes, so a total of 30 minutes should give you the syrupy texture that you're looking for. When you see all these bubbles and it's super glazy, you can tell that the syrup is made. So we're gonna remove this from the heat and turn off our stove at this point, because this is. So we have our bag here that's that we had made our flour and sugar and water paste with. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna be cutting off a tiny tip of this bag, like the very tip. The smaller the tip, the better, because then it'll just give you a smaller line on the crosses. So I'm gonna cut the bag and I'll show you what kind of tip I get. And all the air is already out of this bag, by the way, which is helpful. So I'm just gonna cut it. So I cut it there goes my oven. My oven has just been started to 200 degrees. So as you heard, it just beeped, which is a good time to turn your oven on just before you pipe these, because it takes about 5 minutes for your oven to preheat. So we're gonna move ahead with the crosses. We're gonna go from one very edge here and we're gonna go make our line. So these are all piped and ready to go into the oven. We have the oven set at 200 degrees. We're going to be placing these in there for 25 minutes. We're going to start off with 20 minutes at first on the medium rack of the oven. We're going to push that in and we're going to set our timer for 20 minutes. And then we're gonna check it and see if it needs the extra 5 minutes. So when our oven beeps after the first 20 minutes, we're gonna take this egg and we're gonna whisk it till it's totally beaten. And we're also gonna be adding 1 tablespoon of water to it. So 1 tablespoon of water, and you're gonna give this a whisk until it's one smooth paste. So when it comes out at 20 minutes, you're gonna use your pastry brush and you're gonna apply it to all the buns. One thing we should note is I just took the buns out after 20 minutes. It's not nowhere near ready. We're gonna be turning our temperature up to 300 degrees and we're gonna let that preheat. But in the meantime, that's preheating. We're gonna be brushing our buns with our egg wash. So we're gonna apply a generous amount of egg wash onto these buns. And we're gonna stick this back in the oven at 300 degrees. The reason why I don't egg wash before I put it in is because I want my white lines to set somewhat before I put the wash on it. So that's the reason why I didn't egg wash before, because then these white lines wouldn't be set like they are right now. The whole process prior to this was to get the lines to set and then apply this egg wash. So it's gonna go back in for 15 minutes. So we're gonna be placing our buns back into the oven at 300 degrees and we're gonna set our timer for 15 minutes and we're gonna see how this does by then. And we'll see if we need more time at that point, but we'll let it go for 15. So guys, I just took the buns out of the oven. It was in there for 30 minutes at 300 degrees. After it spent 15 minutes at 200 degrees. I'm here with the glaze. I'm gonna be glazing these buns, like putting a generous amount of glaze on it while it's hot. And yeah, I'll show you what that looks like when they're all glazed. So I am gonna, however, be taking one of these buns out just to test it out and see what we really got going. Ooh, hot. Super hot. Oh, it might be troublesome to just break into it, guys, because it's hot. I don't know if it's the glaze too, but anyways, I'm gonna try and cut it. I would like to rip it apart, but it's hot. It's very hot. So wait. So here it is. I'm just trying to rip it apart for you so you can see. Wow, lots of steam. So yeah, it's cooked all the way, nice and fluffy, and the inside looks really good, and so does the outside. But when I glaze the rest of them, I'm going to show you what that looks like. But yeah, this is what our buns look like.